You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amba TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned.
Payment method: www.abcambertv.com/donate. ABC Amber TV payment channels: Cash App 202-650-2216, Zelle 240-486-8768, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. PayPal payments at abcambertv.com. Contact us today. info@abcambertv.com. Facebook ABC Ambazonia. You can call us on 124-048-68768. www.abcambertv.com.
Get trained as an IT professional from the comfort of your home. Dynamic Tech Academy gives you a unique opportunity through our 6-month program, during which you learn skills to transition to being a full-time IT professional. Over 80% of our students have no prior IT background, yet the vast majority of them land jobs a month after they start applying. Our ultimate goal is to reach 100% student placement, so we work with every student until he or she gets a job. Upon successful completion of the course, we will give you a resume, interview preps, one-on-one coaching from experienced instructors, and job placement assistance. Within this course, you get more than 300 hours of theories combined with real-world applications and practical skills you can apply on day one on your job. At the end of the program, our students can be certified as Red Hat Systems Administrator, AWS Cloud Engineer, AWS Security Specialist. Visit our website at www.dynamictechacademy.com to register.
Good evening and welcome, fellow Ambazonians, ladies and gentlemen. This 22nd day of the month of April is a very critical one for the nation of Ambazonia, as things are turning around in a funny way. We have heard the president's audio trying to orientate and educate our people in the most simplest way possible as to the best way forward. The issue of a referendum is not only creating a controversy within our communities. I'm talking about our diasporic and territorial communities. We now understand and we have very clear intelligence that it is a scheme from La République de Cameroun, grouping our people from different parts of the world to force it through. The question is, we have a root cause of a problem that is wasting thousands of lives today. Why should we, Ambazonians, be preconditioned with a referendum as a way of attaining the sovereignty of our national territory? With me on the panel today, as you have seen on our publicity, is Barrister Timbe Siha, Barrister Fru Johnson. We also have Barrister Ghana, and we have Comrade Zama, the SOS for Special Operations and Defense. We are going to get deep on other issues. That is on our side. The president has tackled. On Tuesday, we're having a good discussion again. Sometime this week, we're going to be having a press conference as ABC Amber TV Day is fast approaching. ABC Amber TV Day will be the upcoming weekend, and we will be having expressly discussions and taking questions and suggestions from the public. That ABC Amber TV Day has been programmed to celebrate undaunted at least 1 year of existence, complete and total broadcast without interruption. That is history breaking. We have broken history, and it is history in the making. We're not at our best yet, but it is a work in progress, and there is a steady increase and progress that we are observing and cautioning towards. On that same day, we're going to have the historic wrapper. We will have to officially launch it to the Ambazonian community and lay down platforms or frameworks as to how this wrapper will be distributed. We're hoping that the Ambazonia Day or the Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation Day, the ABC Amba TV Day, will be a day where we will seize the opportunity to mobilize resources globally. I'm talking about human and material and financial resources that will help us spread our wings as we choose to process the news and also as we choose to carry the untold stories of Ambazonia to the nations of the world. That is very remarkable. We're calling on every Ambazonia, home and abroad, to be a part. Whatever you think you want to do for ABC Amba TV, that is a day. That day is a chance for you to come up with your project, and we will observe, consider to adopt. Importantly, today we have now top military officials in Cameroon, some who started confining in the interim government at the back. We've had others now making statements publicly that their nation does not have the capacity to win the war that they declared on Ambazonia. That's one of the things we're going to be having Comrade Zama here this evening to look at. There are very high chances that the war that is impossible for La République du Cameroun to win, La République du Cameroun might be spreading her force in another war between the Republic of Chad. The Bulu Beti Tifri has extended. Reports has it that Frank Biya and Chantal Biya are doing or organizing irregular activities towards the northern part with the Zakawas, and the Zakawas are vexed. They feel like Cameroon is despising their sovereignty. Cameroon is despising their need to use their natural resource of fuel the way they should, and they feel that there is a fraudulent activity that Cameroon is enacting in their territory. And their Minister of Foreign Affairs has sent a message to the international community, placing their concerns in categoric terms. Cameroon is scheming and begging her way into AGOA. That will be a concluding part of our discussion tonight. Why we play the president's audio for those of you who might not have listened. I'm asking those of you who are watching us on Facebook and on YouTube and on our social media platforms to endeavor to share very widely. Tell somebody we're here tonight to start a big discussion. We'll also open the phone lines so you can make your contribution and or ask questions for clarity purposes. Stay tuned.
Get trained as an IT professional from the comfort of your home. Dynamic Tech Academy gives you a unique opportunity through our 6-month program, during which you learn skills to transition to being a full-time IT professional. Over 80% of our students have no prior IT background, yet the vast majority of them land jobs a month after they start applying. Our ultimate goal is to reach 100% student placement, so we work with every student until he or she gets a job. Upon successful completion of the course, we will give you a resume, interview preps, one-on-one coaching from experienced instructors, and job placement assistance. Within this course, you get more than 300 hours of theories combined with real-world applications and practical skills you can apply on day one on your job. At the end of the program, our students can be certified as Red Hat Systems Administrator, AWS Cloud Engineer, AWS Security Specialist. Visit our website at www.tech dynamictechacademy.com to register.
Ambazonia people them, any side where you dey, I throw a salute. I want to talk for we today about this matter where it turn all side with the hearer. Some people they call and say referendum. Some people them they propose say, may we make our fight for Ambazonia, may it be na a fight for referendum. I don't hear that talk so they, correct from my ear. Now I say make I can't tell you now. Say something they happen, may not take we all by surprise. Because that book is big plenty. That English book, English word, now one way, no matter all we go that book, we will know the difference. And for the generation, I not go expect say a few book people they she done they go confuse all we. Then we don't know what the way it happen. They will all we will find we say we go enter na inside sea. We drown. We no go fight this fight reach for this level. We miss them again. We must win. We must take back our country. Because we feel lose fight not because we don't know how to fight, but because we make mistake. We feel lose fight not because we don't know how to fight, but because we be ignorant. We fight, we not fight with sense, and we don't know what they do. The enemy take advantage, and some people then to the day where they push their agenda. Where sometimes they get their own paper for inside, whether they leak out. So I take my own time. I explain this thing for all may we understand. That people when they talk say this will fight for independence, so may we change them. May we instead talk say we the fight now for referendum. Make I clarify this thing for all Ambazonians. Because may I use their number one argument whether they give and say United Nations if we give referendum for Southern Sudan become independent. They give referendum for Eritrea get independent from Ethiopia. So make we talk say United Nations will give our own referendum for Southern Cameroun Ambazonia so that we too will get our own independence. That thing they so it like na poison for inside honey. May I explain what way me I know. And me I no pass all man. Man we know this matter pass we. Make he also explain me I hear am. But me I know say referendum na something where governments for the world and United Nations they use am for solve internal problem for inside country. They also use referendum for change constitution and make important constitutional provision them for inside the same country. For example, if Cameroon want change something for inside their constitution, they want do decentralization, they change the constitution. And if they discover say they want to know whether people they like federalism, they feel make a referendum. Because any other thing where they want to do, any major internal change for inside country, they feel use a referendum for bring about that change. And when, for example, when South Sudan, they be give the referendum, they not be independent. They will be na part and parcel of Sudan country, the Sudan nation. But because of their agitation, they will just say no, one girl, one country. The United Nations tells Sudan say, okay, we will organize a referendum so that through that referendum now they can give South Sudan independence. When Eritrea, it be also get problem with Ethiopia, they say they want go. United Nations can't give Eritrea referendum. Eritrea be a part and parcel of Ethiopia. They not be independent before they give them referendum. So the matter between Eritrea, the people of Eritrea and Ethiopia, it been an internal affair. But because the agitation we don't go too far, United Nations say, okay, we'll give them referendum. We know whether by law we carve them out as a nation. So after the referendum, United Nations give them independence. But for Ambazonia, the Southern Cameroon, we don't already be independent. For 1961, United Nations already give we independence. So I think that this fight will be fight. So no na fight for being independent. We no be part and parcel of La Republique. So we know they no fit use referendum for decide whether we be part of or remain part of La Republique or we will go away. Because we never join in the first place. We don't need referendum for know whether we be Southern Cameroonians. We already know say we be Southern Cameroonians. Even the United Nations na be pronounced we independent and we be decide say we go join. The marriage waka. Marriage certificate no dey. They join it, we no join. Even the team will be one starter called Federal Republic of Cameroon. It's Chakara. La Republique don't go their own side. They go choose their own name where if they be enter the marriage with that. We don't go take our own name will be start with that. We don't restore our own independence. We will be first getter. How some people they will can't talk now say may United Nations can't give referendum. May we know whether we go be independent or not. How many times some man they get independent? Which country don't get independent 2 times? These people they talk say may we talk say we need a referendum. That means say they don't agree now say we not be first of all be independent before. Say they don't agree with La Republique say we'll be one and indivisible with La Republique. But may United Nations can't give a referendum so that we will fit determine whether we fit be separate and independent or not. No. Our case now one way marriage it be fair because marriage certificate no be Treaty of Union no be there. The marriage join. The marriage fail. Jumba fail. Any man don't go on side. La Republique no take back their independence. We too will take back our independence. Now you can't tell we say we get for talk say we need referendum before we go know whether we will be independent independent or not. You want give we independent 2 times? If we be there part of La Republic, if Idea or Betwa or Marwa, if they agitate today say they want separate Ekang people, they want separate for get their own country, they go give them referendum because they never ever be independent. They never ever get international boundary. They get for after they independent, now they will come now carve their own country, they give for them. After that referendum. But we no need referendum to be independent because we are already independent. United Nations, they use plebiscites for matters where they concern independent countries. But when it concern internal matter, they use referendum. May I give you the difference between referendum and plebiscite? When United Nations be working ask we whether we will join Nigeria or Cameroon, because we be sovereign people, because we be separate and independent, international recognition, they not be give we referendum. They only consult our opinion for what way they call and say plebiscite. They consult our opinion. And after we give we opinion, then they tell we say, okay, if na so, una go do before una go fit join with this country. Una get forget, una get for sign a treaty, una get forget a federal, una get for agree on how that country go be, una sign all paperwork. When the United Nations want to consult the opinion of a sovereign nation, you know they give them referendum, it give them a plebiscite. Because that plebiscite is not a legal, be binding. It's just a survey, an opinion survey, where you go fit help them for make the best decisions concerning that sovereign people or that sovereign nation. But why you go come tell we in the middle of a fight for defend our restoration where we already restore? Tell we say, may we forget about that one. May we pretend like say we no be get independent. May we come back and agree with international public say we will be one and indivisible. But may we ask for a referendum. And so that if La Republic, they do what they know how to do for 62 years. If the international community, they enter conspiracy with La Republic, including France, they do anything what they want to do. When that referendum result come out, where it not go happen in 1 year, 2 years time or 3 years time. If it take 10 years before they put a referendum together, if it take 5 years, 6 years before referendum go put out. When they go do that 5-6 years, they go do everything, eliminate all this our fighter, they turn everything upside down. When they go fit turn around, they talk say no, people way they talk say they want join La Republic, now then win. If they decide so, dialogue will be again. Any man where he win referendum, dialogue end. When you accept say you want solve this matter by referendum, it means say you don't suspend dialogue. Because for referendum now winner takes all. Whoever win a referendum, that's the end of conversation. No dialogue. And La Republic know how to win any election. Anything will concern election and vote. Anything where they happen inside the country, they call and say their own, one and indivisible. They know what to do. Yes, they know what to do. But if United Nations give you the doubt something, or you want to know exactly how their first plebiscite be waka, and why they join in no be take place, and which side, how this marriage don't waka, and why, what will be the position of the people of Southern Cameroon today, whether they will support we or they no will support we. If United Nations want do that kind of thing, they want know which side where the majority stand, they go consult our opinion on the matter. They no go give we referendum because they no go give we referendum to know whether we want be independent or we no go be independent, because we don't already get independent. What happen for that first independent? They go consult with opinion, then they discover say okay, majority of these people are standing on this, and then they go fit advice or make resolution for United Nations accordingly on the matter. Yes, now so this matter get for be. Now so this matter get for be so. Anybody way they try for play ball with La Republic, say may we surrender our restoration, our defense of our restored independence. May we pretend say we'll never be independent before. May na United Nations, may na through a United Nations referendum we go know whether we go be independent or we no go be independent. That person don't already sell out to La Republic. Yes, he don't buy La Republic their position on this matter, and I suspect every other thing that follows. If you buy La Republic their position, I suspect any other thing will follow, because I cannot pretend say La Republic no will be a separate country from Ambazonia, Southern Cameroon. I cannot pretend say we no be get independence from 1961 resolution 60608. I cannot pretend. And if we be get that independence, I cannot pretend that the United Nations government come give we a referendum for determining whether we are independent or not. I no go agree that one. God bless you.
God bless you too, Mr. President. I believe for 1 minute that it could have been explained any better. For those of you who are just connecting, we are going to have a deep discussion tonight, and one of it will be to continuously educate our people on this whole flip-flop idea of a referendum. What happened to the first referendum? What even happened to the plebiscite that was conducted? Why I'm waiting for the others to join the panel, I think our two daddies are already here present and they're willing for us to start talking right now. Barrister Fru and Barrister Tim, good evening and welcome, sirs.
Thank you very much, Paddy, for inviting us again once more.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
it's my
buddy.
pleasure to
We're
always
here
have
as
you,
usual.
and your punctuality is amazing.
We're here as
We are
we're here as
proud
usual for
of
our
the fact that I was here. Hello. Yeah, while we're waiting for Barrister Ghana and Comrade Zama to connect, I like us to begin. This is not part of our discussion. Maybe we should air on the voice of the president on this aspect of a referendum. It's a freestyle. I'd like to start with you, Barrister Tim.
Yes, sir. I think I've been waiting for that. You see, this issue of referendum has been hotly debated. Our people are interested. So the more time we take on it for people to understand, the better for Ambazonians, the better for all of us. I was even thinking of going back to it to make a few points because people misunderstand what it is. In 1961, let it be on
Yeah,
record, Resolution 1352 did not ask the United Nations to organize a plebiscite. No, it asked the administering authority to organize a plebiscite, and the UN would supervise. The role of the UN is supervision. And this takes me to this point. You see, doing a plebiscite or any election at all calls for at least two things. To organize an election, anyone in Cameroon, in China, anywhere in the world, what is organization? To organize an election, a plebiscite, whatever thing you call it, a referendum, what do you mean by that? The first thing that you have to do, whoever is organizing an election, will be to have uh, a register of the voters. You register your voters. Who does this?
I'm on the air.
Is
I'm
the
on the
local
air.
is the local government or the structure locally put there to identify and register its voters, never the United Nations. Because the voting system differs all over the world. Some countries take 18 years as a voting age, some take 16, 20. So the United Nations will never come and sit there.
Barrister Tim, please repeat what you just said again because this alone already debunks a lot of the debate we had before. Just repeat it again. You said something that is very important. I'd like you to repeat it. I think Barrister Fru said something similar to that 2 weeks ago, but then you have said it in another way, which I'd like you to repeat it. Just repeat it again from the article that is legally binding and to the fact that it is not a mandate of the United Nations to organize a referendum. Please repeat it again slowly so our
Yeah,
people can get
the
it.
United, as I said that in 1961, the United Nations General Assembly in Resolution 1352 recommended that the administering authority organize a plebiscite that will be supervised by the United Nations. I'll come to supervision. And then I was dealing with organization. To organize any poll, a plebiscite, a referendum, a local elections, require the first thing that you have to do is to register your voters. All those people who are going to vote must be registered. Who does this? It is done locally because different countries have different systems. In some parts of the world, voting age is 16. In others, it is 18. In others, it is 21. So the United Nations does not have a voting age line to come and sit there and begin to say, come and register here. And again, I don't think those who are old enough would ever say that in 1961, you found a United Nations office in Cambe, in Wum, in Manfe, registering people to vote. Were they a voter register? Yes. Where did it come from? It was the West Cameroon government that had done it. Prior to the 1959 elections, prior to the first two elections of Ndele and Foncha and so on, that a voter poll that had been done. But they could not, the United Nations could not ask them to do it. It simply asked the administering authority to do it. And so, for us to have a plebiscite or referendum, whatever you call it, we must have the structures in place to do the basic things. And this is important. I will come to it very closely. This is important because, we have been arguing here, for example, that, well, we have so many blacklegs who have lived in southern Cameroon for years, francophones. Yeah, to me and you, they should not vote. But they're going to be excluded because I said it, or because you said it, or because President Sarko says it. No. There must be a text that will say, these are the people qualified to vote, on which you will exclude A or B. And for the record, let us have this. All of us know, those who know it well, know that in 1993, the first chairman of the AAC was Barrister Ekontan Elad. I mention his name here clear because it was a very good example. Barrister Ekontan Elad, his father came from Sancho, Mbo, in the Republic of Cameroon. But this man came to Victoria, in fact, in Boyabi house, they settled there and got married to a Bojongo woman. And delivered those children, including Sam Ekontan Elad. So, can we say that? Oh, God.
Now, Barrister Tim, we're going to come back to you.
No, let me finish this point.
Let him learn. Let him learn.
Yes, because it is important. So, can we say that, can you, by yourself, just go and exclude Elad? And there are thousands of them anyway. Just because his father came from over there. Maybe, but you cannot do it. We need a text that will identify who should vote and who should not vote. Right now, we don't have that text available in Ambazonia. We don't have the structure to put such laws in place. So you cannot just say, okay, if the man's father came from Bunda, if the one came from Bafang, he's not going to vote. No. The structures must be there to do that. The law must be passed. At this time that we're talking, let us exclude the interim government. Can A of C have structures in here in Boya, in Kumba? They don't have anything. Worst of all, I've just read the Scapo. Does Scapo have an office in Kumba, in Kambe, in Wum? They don't have one. So which are these structures to do this type of business? They are not there. The second point that you talk about, organization of any polls, is the polling stations. You expect somebody to come from New York and say that, okay, 20 people will vote in Kambe, 10 will vote in Wum, 5 will vote in Victoria. No, this are done by the local people, the local government. And before I just, we heard the president say, citing them, I've had the opportunity to say this before. The referendum in Southern Sudan was never organized by the United Nations. It was organized by the Southern Sudanese government. 5 years or 6 years after they gained autonomy from Sudan. The United Nations had nothing to do with it. The
So
referendum.
You're saying that they gain an autonomy, got the time
yes, if you want that, there must be autonomy.
Organize themselves, and then they did a referendum.
Yes. The referendum in Scotland was never organized by the United Nations. There's a Scottish government in Scotland. They call for the referendum. They determine who will vote. For example, in the case of Scotland, they said all Scottish people will vote. All people of the Commonwealth resident in Scotland will vote. That was the rule of the Scottish Parliament. The UN had nothing to do with it. The referendum in Quebec was organized by the Quebecois government. Quebec has a regional autonomy in Canada. They called the referendum themselves. They decided who would vote. They decided the polling stations and then organized it. It was never the United Nations that did it. And then let me come down to this, since we don't have a lot of time. What do you mean by United Nations supervising a poll, elections? Call it referendum, call it normal poll or anything. United Nations has two roles to play. They may play all or they play one. First, the United Nations can supervise an election. I will come back to deal with it. Two, they can just be observers. These are two roles the United Nations can play. And listeners should follow me very carefully. I say this as a witness and a participant. I've taken part as an active UN official in two polls in different countries. And my official functions in those elections, I was the United Nations elections officer, they call it election manager. I was in the Burundi as part of the United Nations mission there in 2004. I was an election officer under the United Nations. We organized the poll there, got a president,
I also
and left.
understand you worked with Cote d'Ivoire during the transition.
I'm coming.
Yeah.
This was 2004. After 2004, we moved to Cote d'Ivoire. I was in Cote d'Ivoire as an United Nations election official. I took part in the thing. And so what does it mean is what I want to explain here. What does UN supervised election mean? In the case of the plebiscite, there was supposed to be UN supervised election, but how many United Nations officials did you find in southern Cameroon? There were less than 10. The election commissioner, this Iranian guy, was in Boya for less than 6 months, if at all even visited Boya. It simply means that when we go to supervise elections, the parties, the election, the political parties, the government has already set up the structures. There's a United Nations code for transparent, fair elections.
Yeah.
That's what they go there to implement. And they don't be implemented by themselves. For example, in the Ivory Coast and the Burundi, in the whole department, call it a county, that we call it, there's only one United Nations official. I was the only one for a whole division. And then we employ other local staff. What do they do? They simply go there and say, okay, for example, a polling station is not supposed to have more than 500 voters. Who make sure that we tell them, the organizers, because there's a local organization organizing the elections. The Independent Election Commission, for example, will make sure that, look, you must follow these standards. We simply go to the headquarters, let me say to Victoria or to Bamenda, and all those counties and the villages, they have their local representatives organizing the election. We'll say, okay, this is the code. For every polling station, there should not be more than 500 people. We say, this is the code. Ballot boxes cannot be put in private homes. So you don't put them in the palace, as you have been doing. If there's no public school there, create a space for that. That's all what they do. And at the end of the day, when they count the results, if the ballot goes through at the accounting, there will be one or two UN representatives there, just to be sure the accounting 1 + 1 is 2. And that's what we did in the Cote d'Ivoire. They sent in what the local organizers have done. In the case of the Cote d'Ivoire, there was an independent election commission organizing it. Can we say now that in Ambazonia, we have many structures, call it under this present IG, or under Mr. Choyaba, or under Mr. Anu, whoever, does he have these structures in place to talk about organizing a referendum? Again, the United Nations does not organize elections. The local people call it, if they came to Cameroon, for example, today, they will depend on the electoral registers that have been provided them by Elecam. By Elecam. The UN does not have the right to go there and say, okay, take away Paddy's name. Council Mr. John Fruit's name. No.
Yeah.
They provide the voter roll. Okay.
I think you have explained that point in a very exceptional way, and that only helps to add more, I would say, more seasoning to what the president explained earlier on. Barrister Fru, you've just listened to your colleague bringing to us the
Yes.
articles of the illegality and legalities and the intricacies involved with this whole idea of a referendum, knowing fully well, and I think the actors and the orchestrators of this whole ideology who are now pushing it so strong as a way out are aware that the administering authority in Southern Cameroons is the colonial authority, of which they have granted him authority, because nobody is seeking to even ask them why they are still in Southern Cameroons. So I do understand all of that. Now, considering all of this, will we be right to say that those who are doing this are La République du Cameroun sponsored or enhanced or influenced because they are trying to, the same way they did the Grand National Dialogue, Cameroon is not willing to be fair and honest in ending the war they cannot win? Could we be right to make that insinuation? Barrister Fro, please.
Thank you very much, Paddy. I'd like to thank my colleague for explaining it detailedly, given his wealth of experience in the area. In fact, what that means is that whether it's a referendum or a plebiscite, it must be organized by people with autonomy or a country. What that means is, if anybody, the UN, wants to organize either a referendum or a plebiscite in the Southern Cameroon, we must first have our autonomy. We must first have our country, vote our constitution, vote our laws, vote the electoral code before anybody can organize any election. That is what it means, and that is correct. La République wants us to accept a referendum because they will use their electoral register given by ELECAM. They will use their methods of organizing election, and they know how to rig. If with or without the presence of the United Nations observers or any other observer coming from anywhere in the world, La République will rig it and we will lose. That's why we are saying we will not accept a referendum at any point, because a referendum is given by a country, is organized by the country, and the United Nations, if it's interested, will send observers. Like my colleague just cited South Sudan, Eritrea, and other places. They had the autonomy before. South Sudan had the autonomy for 5 years before a referendum was organized. If La République wants to have a referendum now to decide our fate, we said no, because we have never been part of La République du Cameroun. We were never part of La République du Cameroun. We don't have a treaty of union with them. How we joined by force because they came in on the 30th of September and took over our territory on the 1st of October. And since then, we have remained in captivity. We were never part of them. So we will not accept any election organized by La République du Cameroun to solve this problem. And I thank my colleague for getting deep into how these things are organized, because he has the experience. He has the experience, a wealth of experience, both in Burundi and in Cote d'Ivoire. So
Amazing.
La République cannot get it its own way. La République cannot force down a referendum or any other, even a plebiscite, on us, because the electoral register that will be used is La République electoral register, prepared and doctored by ELECAM.
Okay.
And the structures are well done for rigging to take place by ELECAM, by La République officials.
And the funny thing, Barrister Fru, is if the international community or UN is very interested in using their method or a method to handle, the first thing they should have done is to help Kamto to reclaim his elections that he won, or to help Obi, who
No,
most
to help
probably is the
Saudi
winner in the
to help him
elections in Nigeria,
reclaim his autonomy and his sovereignty,
and
and
Saudi
then
Cameroon
prepare
to
the laws, prepare everything, and they can do the referendum even 5-10 years after,
yeah,
or
because you
replace
cannot use a
it.
mistake. You can't use a
That is
mistake
it.
to correct another mistake.
If they organized the plebiscite in 1961, it was because we were still under the British colonial
Trusteeship.
power, and to use the Southern Cameroon's electoral code when we had autonomy, some kind of autonomy under the British control.
Actually, we were self-governing
We were
for
self-governing. That's the word. We were self-governing.
more than half a decade, and
Yes.
the attitude of the United Nations was contravening the United Nations Charter. I think Article 75, which stated that
Yes.
people like us who were self-governing or independent, we had the right to gain our independence without any preconditions. I'm coming to you now, Secretary Zama. You're getting the gimmick. That's not where I want us to begin. I'd like us to suspend it until we get Barrister Ghana. We might get back into it and then move into Agoa. I want us to look into this that have been making news waves. As it is right now, we've had intelligence of military officials from Yaoundé actually trying to advise the government at the back that they cannot win the war declared against the
Correct.
indigenous people
Correct.
of Ambazonia. And someone boldly, I don't know if he did so after taking Grigri, consciously or unconsciously, said on camera and on the media that Cameroon cannot end this conflict militarily. You're at the helm of the strategic self-defense apparatus that we are using at the home front. How do you feel? What message do you have for Ambazonians after such confession? Thank you. Uh, SOS Zama, can you hear me? It would
It looks
appear
like he's.
that
It looks
he is
like he's
having
frozen.
an no,
Okay.
he's not frozen. He might just be having a challenge or feedback. I think I need to consult with him to be
Can you
sure. Yeah, yes. So
can you
meanwhile, yeah, yeah.
can you
Meanwhile,
unmute him?
no, he's muted. I think he's just facing some challenge. Yeah, he's having a sound problem. Maybe you want to connect. He has just indicated he's having sound problem. Disconnect and connect again. Let me get back to you, Barrister Team, on this. Let's start from there. There is a clear confession from La République du Cameroun by a top military official that they will not be able to win this war. So I can try to see the best way to help Comrade Zama come back. Yes, Barrister Team, the mic is yours.
Yes, it's not a confession only today. I think if the guy said it publicly, it is something that everybody has told them publicly and privately. They know that they cannot win this war. That's a fact. All those who give them genuine advice have told them you cannot win the war. They themselves knew it. In 2017, when Paul Biya said, give us 2 weeks and we'll crush them. 2 weeks has transitioned to 5 years, to 7 years. Any reasonable man, any person who is reasonable would understand that it's an impossible task. If it were possible, you would have had it, you would have doubled your 2 weeks, it would have been 1 month. You would have tripled it, it would have been 6 months. You have quadrupled it, you have I don't know what to put it. It is 5 years and you're not winning. It's not winnable. It's not a winnable war. And so telling us publicly is just what everybody knows. You can continue for 100 years, like Mr. Wilbur said. Bring all the army from France, join the ones from China, join the ones from Russia. You will not defeat Ambazonian forces. Not because we have jets, not because we have trucks. No, you don't defeat a person in his own house. We know where to stand, we know where to hit, we know where to hide. And as long as Ambazonians remain resolved, the victory, the military victory is absolutely impossible. Yes, they will do us harm. They have been killing us, but they are not killing us for nothing. They are also dying. They are dying. And the reasonable among them ask, like that general, why are our children dying? Why are they dying for? Somebody from Garawa, somebody from Bertua, somebody from Yaoundé, who is already dead. He died for what? He sent them to war to fight for what? So it is a fact that they cannot win the war. What the guys said publicly is what they already know privately. If the war is continuing, I think, this is my opinion, it is not because they hope to win. No, it is because those people who are in control, politically and administratively, financially, are making a fortune out of it. They are making money. They are not making a political name. They are making money. Remember, the system in Cameroon is a system of appointment. You buy those appointments. And so it is not because the guys are saying, no, I've all along known that they cannot defeat the resolve of Ambazonians militarily. No. Maybe if they go to the plebiscite, they will rig it. There's not a military victory. But they cannot win this thing militarily. That's my opinion. I can just confirm what that guy said. Again, like Weber said, bring all the armies in the world. If the mighty America could be defeated by the Vietnamese, if the mighty America with all the towns and the planes in the world could be defeated until they will escape by the Taliban, if mighty Israel with all the support of America and the whole West could not withstand Hamas in southern Sudan, they remained in southern Lebanon, they remained there for 20 years. They were forced to flee. Israel was forced to pack and run away. So if the Republic has lesson to learn, those should be great examples for them. The Taliban, as bad as they are, once they were resolved that Americans will not stay, they send them away. The Vietnamese, as primitive as they were, as they call them, when they were resolved that Americans will not stay, they send them away. America packed and left. And so that's the bottom line. Thank you.
That's amazing. It would appear that we're able to get. Yeah, you want to add something to that, please, Barrister Fru? Go ahead,
Yes,
because we are
yes,
able to get. We're able to get.
yes.
SOS Zama, you are actually on screen now. We can get you.
Okay,
I'm not sure if what
add,
is. Yeah, just
let me
add
add
something
before.
and let's get.
Yes, I want to add as far as facts are concerned. Yesterday, La Republic held a very important security meeting, and the two generals managing the war in Ambazonia, General Buba and the other general who had made that declaration, which Meme before reported. Paddy, you remember? I think I said that to you.
Yeah.
And the two generals now met a report in that very important meeting. And their recommendation was that the government should seriously think about getting to the negotiating table. And the response from the Minister of Armed Forces was very, confusing. Oh, we are okay, very good. We're already doing something. And yesterday they made it now known to the government. They said the military actually said this issue should be taken back to the decision makers, the government, the commander in chief, because the army cannot win this war. And the Americans had told them, given their experience, nobody wins guerrilla warfare. Nobody wins guerrilla warfare. Americans would have won in Vietnam. They would have won in Afghanistan. They would have won wherever they were. Everywhere that was guerrilla warfare, they backed up. I'm hearing myself.
This is amazing. Yeah, no, that's good. I think maybe you're having a double sound, but that's fine. SOS Ama, if you can hear us now.
Let me finish. The point I'm making is, it is now clear that La Republique has is about to surrender, and they are looking for ways to surrender, and that's why they have been meeting with these enablers all over the place, and they have now decided to meet in the Hudson Institute. And the Hudson Institute is saying that we have nothing to do with this meeting, with this conference. We are just giving our structures. We are not the organizers. I hope I'm clear there. That's what is on now.
Yes. Hello, SOS Ama, can you hear us? Can you hear us now?
But if something is wrong with the thing is bouncing back. What's going on?
Yeah, I think he is having an issue with his sound. SOS Ama, can you hear us now? Okay.
I don't think.
While we were going to try, he's been facing challenges for a couple of shows now. The possibility of him connecting has been very challenging. So while we're still trying to get him on board, let's get onto this issue of AGOA. It's quite shocking that Cameroon is scheming, probably or possibly begging their way into AGOA. We do not understand why and how, but the behavior of America as well, tolerating such discussions even after every recommendation they have given to La République du Cameroun, and La République du Cameroun has not respected, is quite unfortunate. Barrister Tim, please.
Paddy, I think yesterday on the Over Horizon, that issue of AGOA was adequately handled by Mr. Henson. See, he made a mistake. To the best of my knowledge, since 2019 that AGOA started, we've had two administrations. That was under the Trump administration, and today we have the Biden administration. To the best of my knowledge and my reading, the Biden administration has not changed any position as far as Ambazonia is concerned.
Yes, correct.
Concerning Cameroon, the Biden administration is continuing exactly what the Trump administration did. They cannot politically, diplomatically, drive away the Cameroon foreign minister who comes here to talk. They will listen to you. Politically, diplomatically, they cannot send you away. They will listen to you. But whether they would even do what you want is the issue. I think Barrister explained it yesterday. AGOA was giving, they were admitted into AGOA like other members. The first principle, which is important to the United States, of Trump, of Biden, of Clinton, of whoever, is the respect for human rights. Can anybody in his or her right senses say that the human rights situation in Cameroon has improved from 2019 to today? It has instead worsened. So they can come around and scheme around. I'm not sure they will ever get what they want to get. Because the same embassy, look at the U.S. embassy only reports on the struggle, on the human rights situation in Cameroon from 2019 to today. Even before then, remember the shooting in the killing of people in the north? It was not done in 2019. It was not much earlier. So those reports have been persistent. The United States government, there's nothing Cameroon can do to hold the United States government hostage. Nothing. They are just beggars. As a matter of principle, the US is not begging anything from Cameroon. They're just trying to help them. And if they don't comply to the rules, they will not get what they want to get. They are beggars. It's not the US government which is a beggar here. No. They are beggars. They can talk about the Gulf of Guinea. The Cameroon does not own the Gulf of Guinea. There are other countries that are concerned with the Gulf of Guinea that the United States can go to the Gulf of Guinea without Cameroon. So for that, to the best of my knowledge, the Biden administration has not changed from the Trump administration. The human rights situation has not improved. It has instead worsened. They were thrown out because of their human rights records. Essentially that. Not because of the economy. The thing was not put there for that. No. If you want to deal with the American government, to the American institutions, even their own local American company, where they go out to work everywhere in the world, Exxon, whichever company, if you don't respect human rights in those countries, the American government will sanction you back home. So human rights is cardinal. It's not that jungle of Cameroon there. That's what I know. Thank you.
Yes, Paddy.
You see, there is something I really wouldn't want us to miss out on this whole thing. One thing we need to consider, and to consider with a lot of caution, is the fact that La République du Cameroun has lobbyists in Washington, and they are not working in isolation. Or this whole idea of approaching the United States and asking for a rejoin into the into AGOA could possibly be based on advice. What I'm trying for us to process here is what is the rationale, what are their bases? Because we hear their claim is the economy is already improving, and they think for some reason they're competent enough. Um, since they pulled out of the Swiss-led mediation, we've not as much as heard the United States of America criticize their actions publicly. Perhaps the United States of America is considering that La République du Cameroun can handle this whole war of Amazonia as an internal affair. So I'm trying to take it from different angles to see what could be the sense of them starting a discussion to be rejoined into AGOA.
Yeah, Paddy.
Yes,
Can I?
please. Barrister Fu, I'm coming to you with that.
The AGOA that was instituted was not instituted based on their economic performance. It was instituted based on when they take it away from you, when the Trump administration took that AGOA away from La République du Cameroun, they actually talked of human rights violations, extrajudicial killings, arbitrary arrest. Those are forms of human rights violations. Arbitrary arrest, and the fact that Cameroon is doing nothing to end the war in Ambazonia.
Just so I'm not cutting you,
And
SOS Zama, can you hear us now?
no.
He's still not getting it.
And
Okay, go
listen,
ahead, please.
La République doesn't seem to understand why AGOA was withdrawn. Because if they understood, the economic minister, Alamin Osman May, could not come to Washington and meet with their lobbyists, and their lobbyists are lobbying for AGOA to be reinstated when the conditions that were given when AGOA was withdrawn, La Republic has not even begun to respect one, the human rights. Not to talk of, and you made a statement about withdrawing from the Swiss talks. If America has not spoken, it doesn't mean that they are not speaking, Paddy. They don't have to come to ABC to speak. They are working because it will be very, very difficult for AGOA to be reinstated to Cameroon if the Cameroon has not moved an inch from the conditions that were laid down when they withdrew the AGOA. And let me say this. Osman May can come to Washington, display all the voodoo economic that they have prepared. We know that the Cameroon economy is sinking. For them to be talking about a 4.3 growth rate and presenting that to the World Bank stakeholders and presenting that to the American people, to American government, and asking for AGOA to be reinstated as if AGOA was withdrawn because of lack of economic growth. No. Their foreign minister should have come to tell them that this is the progress we have made in the area of human rights. There is no longer any war in Ambazonia. There is no longer any extrajudicial killing. There is no longer any arbitrary arrest. People are not in prison, are not being tried. You will not believe that, Paddy, there are 2,800 and counting Ambazonians in La Republique prison system. Whether it's in Kundenge, New Bell, Boya, or Bamenda, or Bakusa. More than 2,800. You know, I
think that number you're giving is underestimation. That should be just the number in Kondengi alone.
That is the number that I got through the system that I was part when I was defending Ayuk Tabe.
But that's an underestimation, because in 2019, when Barrister Tim and I did a report, you remember the report wanted to give to the government and the UNHCR. The figures we had in 2019 was more than that.
Let's not quarrel with the number, but we know that there are many.
Yeah.
And I came through an intelligence that these same military people held a secret meeting in Douala, and they were discussing about the release of these prisoners. First of all, they treated the terrorism law in Cameroon, that it was wrong to have applied the terrorism law to Ambazonia. Well, they call it Northwest, Southwest. I'm the one calling it Ambazonia. Number two, they said that in the African Human Rights Charter, it is clearly stated that no civilian should be tried in the military court. So what they are proposing now is they should not, all those who are in prison because of the terrorism law, that is terrorism, financement de terrorisme, apologie de terrorisme. I'm just trying to give it in the little French I know. Now, all of them should be released. And secondly, that anybody who was arrested carrying a gun, that case should be transferred to the Ministère Public of where that crime was committed. And thirdly, anybody who killed somebody as a result of arresting, kidnapping, or whatever, should be transferred to the Ministère Public of the jurisdiction from where that event took place. And this was a very secret meeting, which they themselves denied that it never took place. But I want to say here and there that we know, they should know that we know that they have been applying the wrong law on us and tantalizing our people. These are things that makes the United States government not inclined to even listen to any application for the reinstatement of AGOA. If the Minister of Foreign Affairs had accompanied Osman May, who is the Minister of the Economy, and make that presentation, maybe he will be able to prove. I'm not saying that he will prove, because nothing has changed. In fact, it has worsened. Look at the killing. When they talk of extrajudicial killings, We are not only talking about Ambazonian citizens. Look at what they did to Martinez Zoko. That is an extraordinary extrajudicial killing. How can La Republique take his hands, his feet, even, I don't care how strong the lobby they have, to be able to overcome the reasons why the Trump administration took away AGOA and asking, they're now asking Biden to reinstate it. Biden is not only continuing with that decision of the Trump administration, they have also added the TPS, temporary protective status, and that temporary protective status was given because of the war in Ambazonia, and they have given it now. It's benefiting all Cameroonians because the Americans now consider that there's a war in Cameroon and nobody should be imported to go back. So you have 18 months in the renewable as long as the war is on. That's the TPS. That is an addition to the AGOA because they realize that you are not safe in the territory of Cameroon. How can Cameroon be asking now that that AGOA should be reinstated? That is the issue. And they are not going to go anywhere. Thank you.
It would appear that Barrister Ghana is frozen. Okay, are you back? Can you hear us, Barrister Ghana?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. So before we even move on, you'll be taking us aback because we would like to get your contribution on some of the things we've discussed. We started by re-explaining or erroring the president's statement he sent out in pidgin to our people. At that time, we had just few people watching. Now we have a lot of Amazonians that are watching. So I'm soliciting the kind attention of this audience so that Barrister Ghana can also use that as a platform to make a comment. We'll give you enough time to speak before you get into AGOA. We're having a very huge challenge being able to connect Comrade Zama. So I'd like to have you maybe just give to us an introduction on this whole aspect of AGOA. After that, I'll play the audio of the president again, and so that you can speak for us to write on there. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, I listened to Barrister Funso and his position on AGOA and the statements he made about TPS. Barrister Funso is absolutely right. The American position on Cameroon, whether they realize it or not, has remarkably shifted. Previously, it was more diplomatic in them always saying, for now, our current position is XYZ. For now, our current position is XYZ. But when we see the United States government having issued TPS, when we listen to the statements that are being made by the former United States Assistant Secretary for Africa, Mr. Thibault Naj, when we see the discordance in the position between the Americans and the French, and when we see the French now beginning to lashing out in other ways, and when we look at this whole issue of Macron talking about strategic European autonomy when it relates to Taiwan, and if you pay attention to that, you also have to pay attention to when Macron came to visit the White House quite a few months ago. And after he was being interviewed post that visit, he complained about the Europeans needing to depend on an American election for their security. He complained about the disparity in the economic underpinnings of the United States versus Europe. And you fast forward that to now, he's now talking about European strategic autonomy towards the rest of the world. You have to somehow intelligently infer that there are a lot of things that are happening on the ground that have made the Americans to shift their position, not just about Ambazonia, but about the whole imperialist approach towards Africa, about the whole assignment of parts of Africa as something that is exclusively French. When the Americans observed what happened in the intervention of in Libya, and how France is the one that practically dragged Hillary and Obama into that whole mess that has created insecurity across Mali, Niger, and all of those countries there. The Americans have assessed that, and they are shifting their position, and that includes Cameroon. And they are not shifting their position in Cameroon just because of this global shift, but because they are beginning to realize that they have to stand for the truth. They say you can either stand for the story or you can stand for the facts, you know. And sometimes to be able to make progress, you have to divorce the story and you have to marry the facts. You have to divorce the story and you have to marry the facts. And the story on French Cameroon has always been a somehow shadowy pretense that they somehow have some legitimacy over Ambazonia. The Americans know they don't, and the Americans know. I mean, you have to go back to U.S. Resolution 684, and if you read paragraph 4 of U.S. Senate Resolution 684, it specifically says, and by the way, the United States Senate is the most powerful legislative body in the world. The United Senate, let me say that one more time, is the most powerful legislative body in the world. And when the most powerful legislative body in the world passes a resolution saying the conflict in Cameroon between French Cameroon, supported by France and Ambazonia, has to be resolved, again, paragraph 4 of that resolution says, has to be resolved consistent with the root causes of the conflict. So if you sum up all of these things, the French position, I see Macron as lashing out because the Americans are not going to go with the French line on Cameroon. You look at TPS, you look at AGOA, you look at even Senate, U.S. Congress Resolution 284. And if you read the details of that, you now begin to realize that the American position on Ambazonia has changed. And Ambazonia is already free. We are just going through the emotions of delivering the birth pains of Africa's newest nation. Ambazonia is a separate sovereign nation. Ambazonia is already free. And whether those uncircumcised clowns in French Cameroon want to think that they can keep Ambazonia in perpetuity, that will not happen. Ambazonians, you are already free. We just have to complete the birth pains of delivering Africa's newest nation.
I like the fact that you brought in an aspect, and I started discussing this with Barrister Team last week. We could not even finish it. Fortunately, we have the time now, thanks to ABC Amber Television, to really decode it. I like the fact that you brought the aspect of France trying to change global dynamics and their foreign policy as to who they are partnering with. There's a lot happening. Even as we speak, there is a conspiracy, I would say international conspiracy between certain states. In Africa, you would have South Africa, you have Malaysia, China, and Russia to undermine the US dollars. Now, France is going to China for economic and political partnership, and his objective is purportedly to institute a special sovereignty of European states without America. So a lot is happening. The current world order might be changing, or an imminent third world war might have new allies emanating. If we've gone down history, you realize that the allies we had during the Second World War were not exactly same allies during the First World War, when Germany was leading the entire world. This is very critical, and I think it has to affect our movement as a people, owing to the fact that France is directly involved in the war in Cameroon. Maybe France is thinking that America is taking our sides, as confirmed by you, and they would want to make new friends. But as a team, what are the technicalities involved? How can these changes affect us during this time that we're also trying to make new friends?
Well, I think we should all agree that right now that we speak, 2023, France is absolutely diplomatically desperate. They have no new way out. They hang around everything. And as usual, like most human beings, they look for excuses. They blame people who are not supposed to be blamed. Ambazonians are only victims. We are not the cause of any of their problems. We're just part of the victims. And the French larger problem in Africa is self-destruction. They made it themselves by pretending to give independence when they gave no independence. They have been harvesting all the minerals from Mali. They have been doing the same to the Central African Republic and all their other colonies, which were part of France d'outre-mer, France overseas. And so we have not been part of France. And if there's anything, France hates us. I mean, when I say us, I mean Ambazonians. Because we open the eyes of people who would otherwise be dormant. Why do you believe, for example, I saw it on the program, why is Chad now taking on Yaoundé publicly, not even privately? Why are they taking on Yaoundé? When they take on Yaoundé, they're taking on France. People did not know. When they saw that that Chadian foreign minister, whoever, making the speech, it proceeded from somewhere. The week before, Chad, as a government, had nationalized all the holdings of Chad pipeline from Kribi to Chad. They nationalized it, thrown out all those foreigners, including even in Cameroon. And Cameroon thought that in order to circumvent it, they will create this so-called Savannah, whatever thing, a private company, and give it to Frank Biya. And of course, you see the Chadians coming out popularly to say, no, we in Chad will protect national interests. You in Cameroon, you protect private interests. Is that helpful to them? No. Is that helpful to the Ambazonians? Of course, it is. We're helping them. We're helping other African countries, colonies, call them in quote, to understand their rights. France will never forgive us. As Mr. Avigana says, the French cannot dictate to the Americans. The Americans may sometimes take what France has to say, just to save their own interest. But they cannot, in terms of foreign policy, in terms of defense, dictate to the Americans what their interest is. And so it's a foregone conclusion. We are on the right track. Luckily, we are lost here in the United States. We are not just sitting here in the United States. You and me and many others are American citizens who influence the American political system better than the Cameroon influences its own political system back home. So that is it. That's it. Thank you.
This is amazing. Barrister Fu, please, you want to react?
Yes.
You want to, Barrister Fu should react, and then we'll come back to you, Barrister Ghana, please.
There are many things that the French have done to raise the eyebrows of America. The first is that France, they violated the sanctions that were put on Russia by importing refined uranium directly from Russia to use it in their nuclear plants in France. They are doing that right now. Secondly, they went to China and told the Chinese that the Europeans will have nothing to do with the position of the United States as far as Taiwan is concerned. That is a direct affront to the United States. And France has already lost Central African Republic to the Russians. They have already lost Mali to the Russians. They have already lost Burkina Faso to the Russians. The Americans will not tolerate the Russian influence in Africa. They are now working to limit the extent of which the Russians can go anywhere in the African continent. And that starts with Cameroun and Ambazonia. Cameroun now is dealing with the Russians indirectly. If you take the Martinez-Zogo affair, which unearthed a lot of problems, you will find out that the Wagner group that is in Central Africa has been secretly entering Cameroon and carrying out reconnaissance. The man who is sitting now in Kondenge called Amugu Belenga runs a militia commanded by a retired colonel of the presidential guard called Colonel Nsua, who is a father-in-law to Amugu Belenga. And Amugu Belenga is a bedfellow to the president of Central African Republic, and consequently has been helping the president of the Central African Republic financially to take care of the Wagner group, which is now stationed in Central Africa, and they are calling the shots. The French have been kicked out, everybody has been kicked out, the Russians are there. The Russians will tell you that it's a private militia. No. It represents the Russians anywhere, including Ukraine, where they are fighting. So the Americans now should begin to know that the French can no longer handle what is happening in Francophone Africa. Therefore, they should step in to ensure that even if the French fail anywhere in Francophone Africa, the alternative is not the Russians taking over. That's why Americans are now, I suspect that they are now working on that issue, because they have been respecting the French, what they call the Pré-Carré Français in Africa. I think that position is shifting, and it's shifting very fast because of the presence of the Russians on the continent. So Ambazonia is the only country that can protect the Gulf of Guinea from any invasion of the Russians if the Americans will give their backing and help. Because the Gulf of Guinea is so important. It's the second largest oil deposits in the world. The Middle East is the first. Americans will not tolerate Russian presence in the Gulf of Guinea, even though the Russians are already exploiting oil in the Gulf of Guinea, given by La République du Cameroun. You can argue that it's a private Russian company, but the Russians are exploiting oil in the Gulf of Guinea. But it is not yet it is not yet considered the presence of the Russians in the Gulf of Guinea. Therefore, Americans have an interest to protect the Gulf of Guinea from the invasion of the Russians. And that is why, like my colleague Barrister Ghana said, Ambazonia is already free. We're now in what they call mopping up. But we must do that with a lot of firepower. So that La Republic should know that even though they are surrendering, they are already surrendering. Before Barrister Ghana came, we talked about what their generals who are managing the war have told the political people in Yaoundé, that the soldiers cannot win that war. And this is something that had been told them by the Americans long ago. So I agree
Now,
with Barrister Ghana that this matter is over. We need to just continue with the mopping up and ensure that we get back to our country.
Now, talking about Ambazonia protecting U.S. interest and preserving some serenity in the Gulf of Guinea, that is one of the richest regions or sub-regions globally. There is a dispute, no doubt, due to irregular oil activity of La République du Cameroun in Chad with Exxon, I think most probably Exxon Oil Mobile. So this, according to this report or reactions coming from both camps, you would have Chad recalling their ambassador to neighboring La République du Cameroun in the latest escalation of the dispute over the sale of ExxonMobil of its oil asset in both countries by Savannah Energy. So this, we thought that Bia's wife and son Frank, wife Chantal and son Frank, are actually the masterminds behind this activity. Exxon closed sales of its operation in Chad and Cameroon to Africa focused oil and gas producing Savannah in a 7 million US dollars deal in December. Now the quarrel between La République du Cameroun and Chad ongoing, with Chad explaining themselves explicitly to the international community their frustrations of Cameroon's bad behavior. There are those who are suspecting that there could be some form of a conflict between these two parties in that because of whatever is happening there. There are people suspecting a war. Cameroon Cameroon might just be getting into any war. Now, you want to say something? I'll give you the mic. But
I want just to complete what I was saying. Chad nationalized all its holdings and equipment, right from Chad to the port of Kredi. And you know, there's a company in Douala, the headquarters is in Douala, called Kotko. Well, it wouldn't be the headquarters, but it's a company that was created by the oil company, and Chad has nationalized everything, including that Kotko, because Kotko was actually being paid by Chad to manage the pipeline. And that pipeline is being the management, the running of the pipeline through Cameroon is being paid to Cameroon. So Cameroon government is tactless, very tactless, to take Frank Biya and Madame Biya to interfere in something that has already been contracted and sealed since how many years today, and they are trying to interfere. That's why Chad was forced to come out with that communique that you heard the Minister, Secretary General in the presidency of Chad reading to the international community. And that can risk war. Cameroon is very tactless. They have problems at home. They cannot even solve the problems at home. They are now looking for war with Chad. And it's unfortunate.
Yes, Barrister Ghana, looking at this very closely, how can this dispute, if not properly managed, because it has to do with what Cameroon is depending on solely, and that's oil, how can this dispute, if not properly managed, affect the political dynamics of the CEMAC sub-region, and of what benefit could that be for the nation of Amazonia? Barrister Ghana, please.
Yeah, I think with the untangling of the French grip on Africa, it is also consequentially expected to resolve on the untangling on the French grip in CEMAC. One thing that is happening, again, that we need to inject into this discussion is that when all of these foundations of French grip on African states occurred, the educational level of these Francophone African states was very low. In 1960, 1961, when France was orchestrating all of these schemes, Africa has had less than 1% of its population with a college education. A lot of these leaders who signed on to all of this cooperation, the accords, leading to all of this, leading to the French stranglehold, were glorified grade 2 teachers. And so what we are experiencing on the African continent that we need to be cognizant of is that between 1960 and now, which is a good 60 years, we've had 2 generations of Africans. We've moved from having less than 1% of college education to having somewhere between 25 to 35% of Africans now of age 20 years and above with college education. What has this resulted to? This has resulted to more sophisticated thinking. This has resulted to more people, a majority of Africans now understanding their interests. This has resulted to people now moving into leadership who are globally traveled, mentally globally traveled, who are not willing to accept schemes where they sell their nations to France in return for peanuts here and there. So the sophistication of Africans has changed remarkably. And so France is finding itself dealing with Africans who are remarkably different from the Africans it dealt with in the 60s. And when you come to this situation of this dispute between Cameroon and Chad, I mean, it's a crazy dispute in the first place because, I mean, Chad drills oil, I mean, leveraging these international corporations. That oil travels through ROC, and it's in the interest of both countries to maintain the agreements that it has. It's in the interest of Cameroon to maintain those agreements because it's financially benefiting from them. But there's a saying that I've always said here, and I've always said, when the first button of your coat is wrongly buttoned, everything is going to be twisted until you correct that. The first button of Cameroon's coat is wrongly buttoned. The foundations of what it calls a nation are wrongly constituted. And tying Ambazonia into Cameroon has let LRC itself not be able to build a properly functioning nation. It has led LRC not to be able to establish a proper leadership structure. It has led LRC not to be able to establish rules of democracy which it can follow. It cannot even follow its own rules. Barrister So and Barrister Mbesa, they are very, very mindful of what happened in 1996 when they drafted that 1996 constitution. RRC cannot even implement it. So when you look at this issue of the attempt of theft of state resources by Madame Biya and Frank, and leading to that dispute with Chad, it just speaks to the untangling of that rotten foundation which France planted in Africa, and is going to continue to untangle. And part of that rotten scheming is the attempted weaving of Ambazonia into LRC, which, what is happening? It is untangling. So it is going to directly benefit Ambazonia. And the conflict between LRC and itself, as well as LRC and its CEMAC brothers such as Chad, is going to continue to unravel until Ambazonia is free. When we said this revolution was a God-ordained revolution, we couldn't have been more right. Because if you look at all of the things that are happening, the dispute between LRC and Chad, the attempted or the alliance or the treaty signings between LRC and Russia. If you look at the untangling of the French diplomatic global position that affects the rest of the world and Africa, you'll see that a revolution is happening at a time that is going to leverage all of these untanglings. And Ambazonia, like I said, is already free. And everything that is happening is not happening to us, it is happening for us, Ambazonia, towards our freedom. Thank you.
That was
Can
that
I
was
say
quite
something? Can I
instrumental.
say something? Can I say
Yes,
something?
please. Yeah, please go
Yes,
ahead.
I think there are many things that we're not understanding. Like so say they are not tactless now. The regime in Yaoundé, in my own description, is a gang of licensed national armed robbers. All of them. Yeah, it's a gang of licensed national armed robbers. You see what is happening with the pipeline and so on and so forth. It's happening because a new generation of people have come to Chad, who have come to power in Chad. And what the other people were doing, they are not comfortable with it. That's why if you listen to that minister, he says the Chadian government protects national interests. The Cameroon government protects private interests. You talk about SNH. Up to today, since 1975, nobody knows what money comes in through SNH. Nobody knows, even Parliament. And how is it managed? It is managed by a close circle of people appointed by Biya who are unaccountable to him alone. They can give money out to go and buy a plane as if it was a private. So it's a group of licensed national armed robbers, which is on the dying road. You see, people, France discovers, they know all this. CEMAC is part of France. And they've been controlling this thing like a remote control. They realize that sooner or later, Paul Biya will die. I see their machinations. They struggle to bring Frank Biya to be the successor of Paul Biya to continue his father's legacy. But things are not working. Things are not working. But they have not yet exploded to the extent that, like the one we have in Chad. And so these people are criminals. Look at their whole national budget. 50%, even not 75% of the budget. Not by everybody, but a select few Bulu, Betty, with their supporters. So this is national armed robbery, which is unfolding. So the French are losing. The French knew all this. They knew that when they killed the former president of Chad, it was the French who put in the song. When they prepared Frank Biya to be the president, he goes to France, and so on and so forth. So you find what is going on in Mali, what is going on in Central African Republic, what is going on in Chad. This is a new generation of people who are not in Cameroon. The Cameroon political setup, as of now, those in power, whose average age is 80 years, they know that they're on the exit. And the best they have to do is to carry as much money as possible, hide it wherever it is possible for the eventual fall of the regime. Most of them have French diplomatic passports. They will run there. That's not new. And so this group of armed robbers supported by France is disappearing, and then they will disappear. Again, as I've said, Ambazonia is helping to disintegrate the whole nonsense. This was not what they contemplated. And so this thing, as Mr. Ghana says, is helping us a lot. That was never our goal, but our actions are breaking down the whole walls of whatever thing, the Berlin Wall of France. And so we would stand to gain directly and indirectly. The regime in Yaoundé will go. They are going, like it or not, it's disintegrating. And just a question of time. People will have to be held accountable. They have to tell us where all the oil money has gone since 1975.
Yeah.
Someone told
That's one
us
problem.
somewhere I saw on a social media program over there. They said Sonora was burnt. It was not even insured. And they explained why it was not even insured. It was not insured because Frank Biya has gotten into oil company, the oil business. They want oil to be imported. He set up this thing in Douala.
And
So
this
I
is
mean,
not part of this is actually not part of our discussion, but it's a team. You just mentioned Frank Biya that they are trying to install him, and I like us to look at that very, very briefly. And it's not possible. Do you really think Cameroon will not pull through having to enthrone him as successor of his father? Because supported by France, you saw uh, the president of Chad, former president of Chad, um, allegedly killed, and a few days his son despises constitution, and before we know it, Macron is visiting to enthrone him. Nothing has happened. His son was not the successor by constitution, but happens to find himself there. Terrible, very terrible. Looking at all of this, uh, do you think La République du Cameroon, or with their aides, will not be able to have France installed like Idris Déby's son was done in Chad?
no,
Can I answer
I
that?
don't think so. This is my view. Even if they succeed in installing him, he's not going to be the son of Idris Deby, who himself is a military guy. Whoever succeeds Paul Biya tomorrow, where it is his son, from what I see on social media in La République, that guy is going to have tough times. He's not going to have it as easy as they had in Gabon, as easy as they had in Togo, as easy as they had in Chad. No, I don't believe so.
So we
They will not,
agree
it's going
that
to be difficult for them.
the days
I have a
ahead
different
for
view.
that. Yes. You want to add something? You want to add a view? Please,
Yes, I
briefly,
have a
Barrister.
different view.
Barrister.
Biya will be unable to install his son.
Okay.
Let me repeat myself. He'll be unable to install his son for a simple reason. There is the two groups are fighting each other, and they are not fighting because of Frank Biya. The Bulu Beti group is led by Ayolo Mvogo and Motaze, the finance minister. And the other group is led by Ngongo. And these groups are pointing guns at each other. Ngongo has the B and the Israelis behind him. And Amugu Belenga and his group, that is the Motazi group and the Ayolo Mvondo group, they have the militia that Amugu Belenga has put together and the Russians in Central Africa. And all of them are pointing guns at each other. And if Biya attempts to put his son directly as he contemplated to do, it will not work. What Biya has done, which I'm watching very carefully, is that he has appointed 30 members of the National Assembly, and among them, Frank Biya's uncle, the follower of Irene Biya. And I read it as if Biya goes and that man is appointed the president of the National Assembly, up to now they have appointed, Biya has appointed the dead man, and I'm sure he's going to resign one of these days and hand over to
Biya himself is an institution, not an individual, because the individual is
Yes,
vegetable,
yes,
suffering
I
from
agree.
Paddy,
I
point of
agree.
order.
That's why I think that Biya
Point of
will
order,
not be
Paddy.
able.
Okay.
will not be able to force his son into power in Cameroon.
Point of
There
order.
must be conflict. I'm foreseeing a conflict coming from the north and coming from the two factions of the Beti Bulu group.
And the Burmese are there to ensure Kamto
No, the
can
Burmese
also.
are non-status. They are non-status.
Point
They
of
may have
order.
money,
Point of order, Paddy.
but they are not. They are not. But they are not. They are not. They are not.
Barrister Fru is calling for an order here, please.
No, I'm the one calling for point of order. And my suggestion is these topics are so interesting. They are not helping us. I would suggest we go back to our thing. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll go
that,
back to
that
our
was why I was
study.
trying to interrupt us so
Yeah,
that we can
because
go.
we're going to spend the whole day
But
talking about this
our
beyond
interest
nonsense.
in this discussion is this. Our interest is we want to see they say conflict.
No, I
in the
understand. I understand. What I'm
enemy
suggesting,
so that we
I
can
understand
get
you.
some gains.
What I'm suggesting
let-
is this. I know that it's so
I was
nice.
Let's
coming
move
to.
with what
I was coming to an economic point.
No, what I was trying to
That
suggest is this,
Ambazonia
gentlemen.
relies mostly on Ambazonia. They had
Well,
relied
what I
on
was trying to say,
Ambazonia before.
Paddy,
Today
what
they
I
are
was trying to
relying
say is this.
on Ambazonian oil. They are relying on Ambazonian resources, but we have started economic sabotage, but we have not gone far because they are still drilling the oil. They are still living on it, and that's a problem that we'll have to solve.
yes.
What I was trying to suggest, Paddy, is this.
Let me
I was suggesting that.
Where we began the discussion. I want to take us back to where.
Yeah, let's go
Just
back to our own issue. We can have this one for another
taking
debate.
us back to where we began our discussion before Barrister Ghana came in. I was actually allowing you all to express yourself so that we can go back there as a way of concluding our discussion. But Barrister Ghana, it would appear you want to make a brief comment. You make a brief comment so we can go back to where we began and have a conclusion.
Yes, I want to make a brief comment in saying, and I agree with Barrister Beseha that we need to focus on Ambazonia. However, I think what happens in LRC in a lot of ways also affects Ambazonia. You know, whether it's what is happening in Nigeria or LRC, any of our neighbors, affects us. I just want to make a brief comment that one thing that we know with the people who are in power in LRC, okay, is that they have not been able to manage anything since 1982. They have not been able to manage anything since Ahidjo transferred power to Biya. If you look at every institution that they have been put in charge of, they have squandered. If you look at from when Mr. Zak Fonjindam left Chantier Naval, when Chantier Naval was like a shining light in the nation, you look at Chantier Naval now, it is a shadow of what it used to be. If you look at all of the Beti Bulu Ewondo people who've been appointed as head of national corporations, they have mismanaged it. They have squandered everything. If you look at the city of Yaoundé, it is nothing but a shadow of what it used to be. They don't even have running water. Electricity is not reliable. Why am I saying all of this? If you even look at their handling of like the buildings in Washington, D.C. that were being used as embassies for Cameroon, they gave the money to fix the embassies and they embezzled the monies. Why am I saying all of this? If these people cannot manage things, how do you think they are going to be able to manage the transition of power from Biya to somebody else of theirs? That is why I subscribe to an angle of what Barrister Funso is saying, is that given their track record, what is more predictably expected is that they are going to be at each other's throats because they cannot manage anything. Us as Ambazonians, what do we need to do? We need to be ready. We need to be proactive. We need to be prepared. We know LRC has been killing our people. We know LRC is going to try to send in more troops to kill more of our people to distract from the nonsense and the escalation of their own greed. So what do we need to do? We need to build our reserves on the ground. We need to build our capacities to defend our people. We need to be able to support the right of our people on the ground to have the tools that are necessary so that when those bloodthirsty hounds in LRC start going after each other because they cannot manage anything, we have a properly constituted force, first to defend ourselves, and secondly, to complete the labor pains of delivering our nation into Africa's newest nation, why they slaughter themselves. I don't wish for that, but I don't see that as avoidable. So we need to be prepared. We need to have the instruments. We need to keep our people on the ground, and we need to support their right to arm themselves for self-defense, to also defend the sovereignty and the independence of Ambazonia.
That was quite amazing.
Paddy, I don't want to fly 10,000 feet and leave it there. I need to land with those who are watching. That is why you need to pay your draft. That is why you need to support your LGAs and your county. That is why you need to ensure that they have the resources to be able to support the restoration forces on the ground who are defending our people against being slaughtered. If you do not contribute, when this slaughtering starts happening, we will not have the forces to defend our people. And the international community has been observing the slaughters that have been happening and have not sent in any troops or have not sent in any forces to help defend our people. So we are the ones that we have been waiting for. You who is listening is the one that is called upon to support Ambazonia, to strengthen our institutions. And I'm going to say something also. Now we know the authorities of Ambazonia that are geared towards defending our people. We've heard tapes of the ADF guys negotiating with people in the presidency of La Republic. So if you're putting scales over your eyes and you're thinking the ADF or some other group is going to come defend our people, we know the government that has been helping to defend our people. We know the interim government under Dr. Daniel Sako is the one that has been supporting the right of our people through the ARFs to defend our people. So let's not get confused. Let's get focused on the authorities based on a track record who can defend our people. Let's not forget that. So support the interim government under Dr. Daniel Sako, Dr.
Samuel Ikome Sako.
Yeah, Ikome Sako.
And so, just to add to that before we get to the concluding phase.
Let America help us recover the Gulf of Guinea.
And just to add to what you said, Barrister Ghana, you need to support ABC Amber Television, and the time is now. Perhaps you're watching all the channels that Ambazonia purported or supposedly has. Perhaps you are watching the La République du Cameroun proxy TVs within Yaoundé and Douala. Perhaps you're watching the channels in West and Central Africa. You would agree with us that without ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia will be having a huge handicap. This is a weapon that Cameroon is doing everything to seize or destroy. They have tried with Chris Ano and his friends and they failed. And they are strategizing to come back hard. One thing that will keep us afloat, one thing that will keep us vibrant will be your kind donations to make sure that we're working. Our administrative setup is improving every day. And like never before, we have not come public crying. I said to you 2 weeks ago, it is not because we lack or we are not having the challenges that were there before. No, we even have greater challenges because we have expanded our production and the stakes are high. But because of proper management, we can make sure that Ambazonia at least has one thing. The only thing that Ambazonia has 100% control of, and that is owned by Ambazonia by at least 100%, is ABC Amber Television. And therefore, you have to keep it alive. Next Saturday, about this time, that is if resource mobilization and other government actors will agree on that date. They are pushing, the patrons and club and board members are pushing through for us to have ABC Amber TV Day next Saturday. A lot of activities will be there. We're going to use the ABC Amber TV Day to officially present to the public the historic wrapper, and we think that we're increasing production of this wrapper to make sure that before the 1st of October, we're having the entire wall with blue and white with a fabric that represents our nation 100%. Previous to the prior to this time, we've had others attempt something which I consider it was just a flag. There's nothing wrong for you to be like Milichi using the flag. It's very patriotic. It's applaudable. In fact, it is a laudable effort for you to have a flag as an outfit to represent your nation. But when you want a wrapper, you get a wrapper like what ABC has produced for Ambazonia. One way for you to be patriotic is to own it for your wife, your children, your family. Let everyone in your household own a wrapper, and so you can all look beautiful in that wrapper come October. Let's make a statement, and our women during Women Days should stop putting on Shanta Bia's outfit and make sure that we will get it. There's also a t-shirt that was conceived by Pastor Commando. We're working on the modalities as to how we'll have some kind of franchise distribution of that t-shirt that's acknowledging Ambazonia as a 55th nation globally, and have it on 1st October. So people were dressed uniquely in all of that. I want to bring you back. All of this week, we'll be talking about the referendum from an educative standpoint, not debating on it. What is the interim government stance? I want to bring you back to this in conclusion of tonight's discussion. But before we do that, I'd like you to listen again. Just do us the due diligence and patience to listen to how succinct and how explicit the president is on the topic of a referendum. Stay tuned. We'll be back to have the input of Barrister Ganada, was not there from the start, and to get a concluding statement from all our panelists. Stay tuned.
Ambazonia people them, any side where you dey at Roe Salute. I want to talk for we today about this matter where it turn all side with the hearing. Some people they call and say referendum. Some people them they propose say, may we make our fight for Ambazonia, may it be now a fight for referendum. I don't hear that talk so correct for my ear. Now I say make I can't tell you now. Say something they happen, may not take we all by surprise. Because that book is big plenty. That English book, English word, now one way, no matter all we go that book, we will know the difference. And for the generation, I not going expect say a few book people they go confuse all we. Then we don't know what way it happen. They will all we will find we say we got enter inside sea. We drown. We not go fight this fight reach for this level. We miss them again. We must win. We must get back our country. Because we feel lose fight, not because we don't know how to fight, but because we make mistake. We feel lose fight not because we don't know how to fight, but because we be ignorant. We fight, we not fight with sense, and we don't know what they do. The enemy take advantage. And some people then to the day where they push their agenda, with sometimes they get their own paper for inside, whether they leak them. So I take my own time, I explain this thing for all may we understand. That people when they talk say this will fight for independence, so may we change up. May we instead talk say we the fight now for referendum. Make I clarify this thing for all Ambazonians. Because may I use their number one argument where they give and say United Nations, if we give referendum for Southern Sudan become independent. They give referendum for Eritrea get independent from Ethiopia. So make we talk say United Nations will give our own referendum for Southern Cameroun Ambazonia so that we too will get our own independence. That thing they so it like na poison for inside honey. May I explain what way me I know? And me I don't know pass all man. Man we know this matter pass we. Make he also explain now. Me I hear that. But me I know say referendum na something where governments for the world and United Nations they use them for solve internal problem for inside country. They also use referendum for change constitution and make important constitutional provision them for inside the same country. For example, example, if Cameroon want change something for inside their constitution, they want do decentralization, they change the constitution. And if they discover, say they want to know whether people they like federalism, they will make a referendum. Because any other thing where they want to do, any major internal change for inside country, they will use a referendum for bring about that change. And when, for example, when South Sudan, they will give the referendum, they not be independent. They will be na part and parcel of Sudan country, the Sudan nation. But because of their agitation, they will say no, one girl, one country, one girl, one country. The United Nations tells Sudan, say, okay, we will organize a referendum so that through that referendum now, they can give South Sudan independence. When Eritrea, it will also get problem with Ethiopia. They say they want go. United Nations can't give Eritrea referendum. Eritrea will be a part and parcel of Ethiopia. They not be independent before they give them referendum. So the matter between Eritrea, the people of Eritrea and Ethiopia, it been an internal affair. But because the agitation, we don't go too far, United Nations say, okay, we'll give them referendum. We will know whether by law we carve them out as a nation. So after the referendum, United Nations give them independence. But for Ambazonia, the southern Cameroon, we don't already be independent. For 1961, United Nations already give we independence. So I think that this fight will be fight, so no na fight for being independent. We no be part and parcel of La Republique. So we know they no fit use referendum for decide whether we be part of or remain part of La Republique or we go away, because we never join in the first place. We no need referendum for know whether we be Southern Cameroonians. We already know say we be Southern Cameroonians. Even the United Nations na be pronounced we independent and we be decide say we go join. The marriage waka, marriage certificate no dey. They join it, we no join. Even the team will be one starter called Federal Republic of Cameroon. Ichakara. La Republique don't go their own side. They go choose their own name where they be enter the marriage with that. Which we don't go take our own name, we'll be start with them. We don't restore our own independence. We'll be first getter. How some people they will can't talk now say, may United Nations can't give referendum, may we know whether we go be independent or not. How many times some man they get independent? Which country don't get independent 2 times? These people they talk say, may we talk say we need a referendum. That means say they don't agree now say we not be first of all be independent before. Say they don't agree with La Republique, say we'll be one and indivisible with La Republique. But may United Nations can't give a referendum, so that we will fit determine whether we fit be separate and independent or not. No. Our case now one way marriage it be fair because marriage certificate no be. Treaty of Union no be there. The marriage no join. The marriage fail. Jumba fail. Any man don't go on side. La Republique no take back their independence. We too will take back our independence. Now you can't tell we say we get for talk say we need referendum before we go know whether we will be independent or not. You want give we independent 2 times? If we be there part of La Republique, if a there or Betwa or Marwa, if they agitate today say they want separate a Fang people, they want separate for get their own country, they go give them referendum because they never ever be independent. They never ever get international boundary. They get for after they independent now they will come now carve their own country. They give for them after that referendum. But we no need referendum to be independent because we are already independent. United Nations they use plebiscites for matters where they concern independent countries. But when it concern internal matter, they use referendum. May I give you the difference between referendum and plebiscite? When United Nations be one can ask we whether we will join Nigeria or Cameroon because we be sovereign people, because we be separate and independent, international recognition, they not be give we referendum. They only consult our opinion for what they call and say plebiscite. They consult our opinion. And after we give opinion, then they tell we say, okay, if na so, una go do before una go fit join with this country. Una get sign a treaty, una get forget a federal, una get for agree on how that country go be, una sign all paperwork. When the United Nations want to consult the opinion of a sovereign nation, they give them referendum, they give them a plebiscite. Because that plebiscite is not a legal, not be binding. It's just a survey, an opinion survey, where you go fit help them for make the best decisions concerning that sovereign people or that sovereign nation. But why you go come tell we in the middle of a fight for defend our restoration where we don't already restore? Tell we say, may we forget about that one. May we pretend like say we no be get independent. May we come back and agree with international Republic say we will be one and indivisible. But may we ask for a referendum. And so that if La Republique, they do what they know how to do for 62 years. If the international community, they enter conspiracy with La Republique, including France, they do anything what they want to do. When that referendum result come out, well, it not go happen in 1 year, 2 years time or 3 years time. If it take 10 years before they put a referendum together, if it take 5 years, 6 years before referendum go put out. When they go during that 6 years, they go do everything, eliminate all this our fighter, they turn everything upside down. When they go fit turn around, they talk say no, people wey they talk say they want join La Republic, na them win. If they decide so, dialogue will be again. Any man where you win referendum, dialogue end. When you accept say you want solve this matter by referendum, it means say you don't suspend dialogue, because for referendum now winner takes all. Whoever win a referendum, that's the end of conversation. No dialogue. And La Republic know how to win any election. Anything will concern election and vote. Anything where they happen inside the country, they call and say their own, one and indivisible. They know what to do. Yes, they know what to do. But if United Nations give you the doubt something, or you want to know exactly how their first plebiscite be waka, and why they join in no be take place, and whose side, how this marriage don't waka, and why, what to be the position of the people of Southern Cameroon today, whether they will support we or they no will support we. If United Nations want do that kind of thing, they want know who say where the majority stand, they go consult our opinion on the matter. They no go give we referendum, because they no go give we referendum to know whether we want be independent or we no go be independent, because we don't already get independent. What happen for that first independence? They will consult with opinion, then they discover say okay, majority of these people are standing on this, and then they go feed advice or make resolution for United Nations accordingly on the matter. Yes, now so this matter get for be. Now so this matter get for be. So anybody way they try for play ball with La Republic, say may we surrender our restoration, our defense of our restored independence. No pretend say we'll never be independent before. Men a United Nations, men are through a United Nations referendum will go know whether we go be independent or will not go be independent. That person don't already sell out to La Republic. Yes, he don't buy La Republic their position on this matter, and I suspect every other thing that follows. If you buy La Republic their position, I suspect any other thing will follow, because I cannot pretend say La Republic no will be a separate country from Ambazonia, Southern Cameroon. I cannot pretend say we will not be get independence from 1961 resolution 60608. I cannot pretend. And if we be get that independence, I cannot pretend that the United Nations will come give we a referendum for determining whether we are independent or not. I no go agree that one. God bless you.
Wow, that was amazing indeed. Very, very amazing. And Barrister Ghana, please, as you start with you on the aspect of a referendum, we've heard from the president loud and clear, and I think that it's important for us to continuously educate our people on the dangers involved with this whole scheme of a referendum today. Please, the floor is all yours.
The first thing I'm going to say, Paddy, is that I am not going to categorize all those who are clamoring for a referendum as having nebulous motives or having been bought out by French Cameroon. Somebody like Augustin Dangam is somebody I personally know, and is somebody whose belief in Ambazonia, whose faith for our independence is unimpeachable. So people who are suggesting a referendum might be suggesting it for other reasons other than the fact that they have been bought out. I know some of the other members of SCAPO, for example, Mr. Callistus Fonjong, who is based in England, and a lot of other SCAPO adherents or members who are well-meaning. They are wrong not because they have sold out. They are wrong because of what the president has articulately explained regarding the difference between a referendum and a plebiscite, and the difference between having a referendum on an independent and sovereign people as opposed to people who are an integral part of a nation. Are we an integral part of French Cameroon? When did that happen? Where is the Treaty of Union? Under what instrument? We know that they annexed us. We know that we are a people under annexation. I always quote the French Gaullist Frenchman who oversaw the Fumban ordeal, who said, in everything but in appearance, this was an annexation. So we are a sovereign and an independent people who are being annexed, and what we need to gain is a sovereignty. A great example to demonstrate why a referendum is not what we need is the situation of Namibia. Namibia came out of the same Treaty of Versailles as the British Cameroons. And while the British Cameroons was given to England as a trustee territory, Namibia was annexed to South Africa, and South Africa became a trustee or a guardian on Namibia. South Africa tried to make these same arguments throughout all of the apartheid regimes that Namibia was part and parcel of South Africa, just like French Cameroon and France are trying to make that argument that Ambazonia is part and parcel of French Cameroon. Not true. And Namibia did not need a referendum to assert its independence. The Southwest Africa People's Organization, SWAPO, fighting under the leadership of Sam Nujoma, fought the South Africans, and eventually, through several United Nations resolutions, including Resolution 269, and when the regime changed in South Africa from the regime of Frederick de Klerk to Mandela, Namibia got its independence. So Namibia is a perfect example to manifest what the president is saying. And I look at other nations that were independent nations that were tied into other territories. For example, Bosnia and Croatia that were tied in with Serbia to form the nation of Yugoslavia, which I call Yugophalia. Those nations did not need a referendum to become free. Ukraine is not asking for a referendum to stay free of Russia that is trying to annex Ukraine. The other issue, and I'm going to look at it from a legal angle, is that our argument that we've never been part of La République and we are a people that have been annexed is a very prescient argument. What does that mean legally for all of those international agreements that La République has signed with other countries? What does that mean, or how does that speak to the loans that La République has taken from the World Bank, from the IMF, from China, from France, and from all of these international institutions? If we are a people that have been annexed, it means we have not had any legal force to affect those agreements. And so whatever loans that French Cameroon has taken to develop French Cameroon or to steal have nothing to do with Ambazonia, because we're a sovereign people under annexation. Now, if we go through the route of a referendum, admitting that we are somehow part of French Cameroon, then legally, when we separate, some of those loans can be transferred to Ambazonia. So we have to be careful regarding which route we want to take towards completing the birth pains of our independence. Dr. Samuel Sako also talked about the plebiscite, how the plebiscite is a consultation of an independent and a sovereign people regarding national issues. We already have a plebiscite that has happened under a smaller scale. The late Cardinal Tumi did it. He did a survey to find out what Ambazonians want. And in his survey, with more than a 2/3 majority and asking other questions, resulting to almost a 99% majority, Ambazonians want independence. So that plebiscite has already been done, and that plebiscite can be done again on a wider scale within Southern Cameroon. So that's my take on that, and I'm very sure that our brilliant lawyers on the panel will issue their own take on that.
Yes, thank you very much. Ambazonia's standpoint, the president will call it the determinant on the ground, the principle on the ground, is saying that a referendum is a flop. Referendum is a scam, and Ambazonia does not need it now. Perhaps I should get your last words, Barrister Fru, Barrister Team, as we round up this discussion for tonight. Let me start with you, Barrister Team.
Yes, I think I buy the same views from Basagana. These people are not sold out. I believe they have just making mistakes. And let me explain why. See, a few days ago, senior citizen Sandangam put out this couple document on their so-called referendum. And I've had the opportunity to peruse through it carefully, and I hope he's listening to me. And I've come to the conclusion that most of what they are saying there, they are saying it in ignorance. They are making a mistake. For example, the first example they give for which they think that we should follow in asking for a referendum, they give the first example of Algeria. They say Algeria had a referendum. But what they did not say, or what they did not, the faith realize, was that in fact in Nigeria there were two referendums. There was one in 1961, purely in France. And the question was, because until then, the French regarded Algeria and other parts of the French empire, France d'outre-mer, that's France overseas. So they consider Algeria as part of France. And so in 1961, they came out with a referendum purely for the French people in France. And the question was this: do you wish Algeria to have independence? That was an internal affair. And the vote was yes. Then the second referendum happened in 1962, I think 1962. This was purely reserved for the Algerians. Do you want to have independence under these conditions, 1, 2, 3, 4? And the Algerians voted yes. So this was a referendum to resolve an internal French matter. Secondly, I see in their document, they make a lot of allusions to calling the United Nations to come and organize a referendum. Yes, things are easier said than done. What they did not say is how they were going to get the UN to come and organize a referendum in Ambazonia. As of today that we are speaking, where is the United Nations in our issue? Is there any United Nations representative in Ambazonia to come and organize a referendum? No, the United Nations is not yet there. And so you cannot be calling a foreign body to come into the thing to do it. 2, there's no United Nations member who is supporting us, who will take this thing to United Nations. They also forgot to realize that the United Nations acts on resolutions. Therefore, somebody must be able to bring that proposal to the United Nations. Did they identify who would do that? No, they didn't do it because there's nobody standing out for us right now. Then all the other examples they gave, which I've dealt with already, had nothing to do with Ambazonia. They talk about East Timor. East Timor had a referendum, but how did they get it? They got it when Indonesia wrote officially to the United Nations to come there and do a referendum for them. That document, that application was supported by Portugal, Australia, and other members of the United Nations. And so, how could they forget that the United Nations does not just jump into the thing? It doesn't do like that. Again, there's so much talk about dialogue. In fact, they do not even think that there should be any dialogue. They should go hold a referendum because a dialogue will not even work. What is a referendum? A referendum is meant to decide a national issue or an issue common to the people. What question are you going to put to the Ambazonians in your referendum? And who has agreed on that question? Nobody. And so you call a referendum and say what? What are you going to ask the people? In 1972, I used to call a referendum to vote on his constitution. In 1961, France called a referendum to ask themselves this question: do you want this or want that? So without the United Nations being involved, it doesn't work that way. Again, several things have happened. I mentioned in my earlier stance the Ivory Coast, the Cote d'Ivoire. The people agreed in their conferences. They agreed what to do. How did the United Nations get involved there? They wrote to the United Nations. France took it there and said, okay, there's a problem here. This is the agreement. UN transform this agreement into a United Nations resolution and then come and help us solve the problem. That's how they did it. So the Scappo document completely ignores these stages. They say the rubbish dialogue. If there's no dialogue, as I've just said, how do you agree on the proposal you are going to ask the people? According to them, they should ask if we want to get independence. Who has agreed on that? Has Yaoundé agreed? You can only, if there were ever to be a referendum, or whatever you call it, it must be on the conference table where the parties agree and then the conditions under which they will do it. So if there's no dialogue, Yaoundé does not even have a problem. They say we're part of them. So how is the UN going to organize a referendum there with Yaoundé in control of everything in Ambazonia, from councillor to local chiefs? So their document is fraught with errors, and then it doesn't help us anything. Again, I was saying that to do it, the people must have institutions to do it. There was something that happened in Cote d'Ivoire which is very similar to us. If you remember the crisis in the Cote d'Ivoire, the war arose out of Ivoirité. They completely left out Ouattara and claimed that he came from Upper Volta or Burkina Faso. So because of that war, the parties agreed that, okay, there will be a voter registration. They laid down the conditions under which a person will be registered to vote as an Ivorian. I took part in that process. And what's the process? Say, okay, somebody must be identified officially as a parent, father or mother, having come from the Ivory Coast. And how were they going to do it? They were going to use the courts. They will go and sit in Bamanda, they will go and sit in Santa, and these people who are contesting their leadership will bring witnesses. And once you bring two witnesses, they will issue a national identity card right there. They issue a voter registration card right there, and then you go and vote. Once they agreed on this, they took it to the United Nations. I came in, I was there, I was in the identification process. So their document is fraught with irregularities, not properly thought out. And so a referendum, in addition to what we have already said, and in addition to what the position of the IG, that we don't go for it, these are some of the reasons for which our brothers and sisters postulating for referendum should understand. Yes, but Mr. Nangam said, well, people have different opinions. Of course, we are free to debate these things. But when we go before we have taken a decision, it is not because everybody agrees. No, this is what is the position of this IG, and these are the reasons behind it. If you are part of the IG, you subsume to it. You become part of the decision. And so, again, a referendum is ill-advised at this stage. This is conceived. I've said this before. The international community said, go and address the issue, the root cause of the problem. Suppose we were to go back to the conference table, call it Swiss, call it whatever, and identify that the main reason why we have this problem is the plebiscite in the first place. That was organized against our wishes. Will we then go for another plebiscite or another referendum? No, that's impossible. So that is this. Again, our brothers and sisters are looking. We don't do this to despise anybody. We do this so that people can understand the intricacies involved. As I said before, I came to this conclusion. We need to have structures in place. The case of East Timor, they had structures in place. Southern Sudan, they had a regional government for 6 years. They held their last meeting in Kenya, had autonomy for 6 years. East Timor had been given autonomy. They rejected it. They had autonomy before. Just that they were throwing it out, that they came now and said, okay, come and help us tell us what they want. The Scottish thing I've explained was organized by the Scottish Parliament. The Quebec referendum was organized by the Quebecois Parliament in Canada, not by Ottawa. So these examples I've given, none of them tarries with our case. And so it's better for them to forget about that. But again, if there must be a referendum, take my words carefully, if there must be a referendum, we'll be arrived at the table of discussion. Where conditions
not by somebody talking on
where conditions will be
through
agreed
conference.
on. Where conditions will be agreed on by the parties concerned. Yaoundé would have committed itself to it. We, Ambazonia's delegation, would have committed itself to it. With the conditions, who will organize, who will play what role, and who will play what role. Without which, you don't just write document. And then the United Nations, of course, if the Canadian talks are, if the talks are here, the United Nations would have been at the table as an observer. Conditions arrive, I would have been binding on the United Nations.
Yeah, before we get you, Barrister, through for a conclusion, we have one of the fighters from the home front who would like to make a contribution in this discussion. We have the spokesman, Gabonese. Gabonese, you're live on ABC Amba Television, and Ambazonians are listening to you. Go right ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Comrade Paddy.
Let's go ahead, please.
Good evening to all the panelists on ABC tonight. I want to send my salute to Powerful Johnson and all Barrister Ghana and our father who is also in the panelists. I don't know, I can't remember his name. But that throw 21 second salute. This is Gabonese live from home front, speaking through ABC. What I want to say on my view is that Ambazonians have gone through too much suffering in this struggle. And what my point on the referendum is that Saudi Cameroun is not a child. We are not babies for French Cameroon. And we do not have to even mention referendum when it comes to this struggle. I follow the communication that President Sarko mentioned about referendum, and I was so happy for the communication. We are at war. This is war we are fighting. And people have been killed in their numbers, and we have paid the price. French Cameroon will never, ever control Southern Cameroon. A referendum cannot be justified when it comes to war. We have paid the price, and our blood have already filled the blood bank of those devils, French Cameroon. So we have to make sure that we have to prepare our fighters on the ground. We have to make sure that all the infiltrators that are on the ground trying to talk about referendum, etc. What referendum is for what in the first place? After we have declared our independence and we are defending independence, we have to make sure that we look for possible means that we can get the materials needed. This is war. We have to make sure that our enemy are being defeated on the battlefield. They are the ones to beg for negotiation. We do not beg for negotiation. We have our country. They are coming to kill us. We are not going to. We have not went to Yaoundé to go and search for them. They came to our country and they are killing us. We knew our history very well. If you remember the Fumban conference, before the Fumban conference and the fake union, they were fighting the Maquisards in their fucking country. There were no war in Ambazonia. At that time, French Cameroon invaded Southern Cameroon and they came with their gendarmes and their military and they killed our people. So the referendum is for what in the first place? The referendum does it signify any union between the both states? Or does it signify that there is a certain point of contact between the two states? So what I want to say is that all of us, the fighters on the ground, you are a fighter on the ground and you are killing your own brother because of personal greed or because of making money for this war, then you are wasting your time. Because Saudi Cameroon will come to pass. And then you that are killing Ambazonians for your interest, you will pay the price. So I followed the interview from the American former Secretary of State, Tibo Nash. He was talking about referendum, etc. I want to ask this question. When the United Kingdom joined EU on their Brexit issue, etc., and they called for referendum, and they boycott from the Brexit, there was no war, and there was election, etc. No life was lost. Saudi Cameroon's was a state voted at the UN General Assembly according to Resolution 1608. The referendum is for what? We have the documentation that we are a nation, former Saudi Cameroon British Trust Territory, and we have our mobile police, we have our self-governance, our former Prime Minister from the time of EM Indeli right up to Ngomjua. We have our economic system, our governance. So now I want to ask this question. All these people that are seeking for a referendum, what are their motives behind such act? So this is what we are fighting. The most important thing that we need to focus on is to create links. We need materials to fight this war. If they don't want to negotiate as two equals, they will negotiate on the battlefield.
Thank you very much.
The price, we are not ready. Listen, we are not ready to negotiate or to go for referendum that will take us back on some issues, because French Cameroon has infiltrated our people, and those criminals in Yaoundé, they call senators, mayors, governors, and deals. They have some of their criminals down here that they are sponsored to kill our people, and they are preparing a referendum that they will bypass our quest for independence. It will not work, never, until US come to an end, until the next generation and the next world. If only there will be a next world.
Thank you.
To be sincerely speaking, that's the truth.
Thank you very much, Gabonese, for that better way to help us conclude tonight. Barrister Fru, please, your final statements.
Yes, I have been talking on this issue since yesterday and today. My position is that we cannot have even the plebiscite that I'm suggesting. We cannot have it when we don't have our country back. We have put together a constitution, we have put together an electoral law, and we have organized the electoral system, which if anybody wants us to do an election of a plebiscite, not a referendum, like I said yesterday, if those who are Ambazonians don't want to be part of Ambazonia, there is an international law that says that nobody can force anybody to take citizenship of a country that he doesn't want. So if we finally get our sovereignty and our country back, and we organize our electoral system, if the UN wants to consult us on anything, they will have to organize. We will have to organize, and they supervise based on our electoral list that would have been established by us Ambazonians. And I'd like to also address the issue of Pandangam. We have been talking on this network with Pandangam, and it's adamant that he wants to work for a referendum. The president has talked to Pandangam and is on bending. And after he spoke with the president, he came out with that white paper that my colleague was talking about, which I also read. And I would not go to the extent of saying that SCAPO does not know what it's doing. They have taken a position, and they are adamant as to what we say. And Pandangam, being a member of the interim government and the advisory council, is supposed to take the position of the interim government as far as this issue is concerned. He hasn't. And he's adamant about it. So I would not go to the extent of saying that I know him, he has worked hard. Yes, he has worked hard. A lot of these people who are falling apart have also worked hard. So I don't want to cast any aspersions on Tarh, but I'm also saying that he's on bending on this issue, because a lot of people, if my two colleagues can talk to him too, maybe they will throw, he will listen to them. He has not listened to the president of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. He has not listened to all what we have said on this network. So I don't see, and he has come out with the position of SCAPO, which is his organization, and is unbending. So I don't see how we can sit here and say that they don't know what they are doing. They might have put they might have put all those on paper, and that is their political position, and we don't have a right to set it aside. Let them believe what they want to believe. But as far as this interim government is concerned, there will be no referendum, because going for a referendum means we recognize Cameroon, all of us, as belonging to Cameroon. We are one and indivisible people of Cameroon, and we were organizing the elections under the electoral process of Cameroon. So we reject that referendum outright. The interim government rejects it completely. And even if they have to, we have to go for a plebiscite, we must be a sovereign people. We must have our country, put our electoral system together before we accept any election on our territory, be it a plebiscite, be it general elections. So that is the position of the interim government. That is my position, and the president has put it succinctly in pidgin. And I want to support Gabonese, and I thank him for his intervention. And I would like to say this is my last word on the issue. And thank you very much for inviting me, Paddy.
Thank you very much, Barrister Ghana. You have a few seconds so that we have exhausted our time.
Well, Comrade Paddy, thanks for those very incisive words from the brilliant lawyers on the panel, Barrister Mbeseha and Barrister John Fruit. So thanks for those comments from Gabonese, a valiant fighter from the home front. There's something that we just have to realize. We have to realize that if we take ourselves 30 years back, when the SDF was launched to try to address the situation of Southern Cameroonians being held captive in French Cameroon, a lot of us at that time postulated and thought about how we knew that this was going to come to bloodshed. We knew that this was going to come to warfare. And we knew that when Southern Cameroonians, aka Ambazonians, rose to defend their rights, they were going to experience slaughter from French Cameroon. We knew all of this. But what we have to realize is that neither of us at that time, and even going back 61, 62 years ago, really had a formula of how to assemble a force or how to raise an army to be able to defend our people. And so we all thought about how we are landlocked, how we could get support through Nigeria, where we could train fighters, and neither of those brainstormings came to a solution. But now we have an army on the ground, an army that came about as a result of French Cameroon pushing too far and finally causing our people to rise. Gabonese, who just spoke from ground one, is one of those valiant fighters. And I speak to these fighters almost daily. And these fighters are ready and have been laying their lives on the ground to defend our people, to defend our independence, to defend our sovereignty. So coming from a past where we did not even have one soldier, coming from a past where when French Cameroon troops started slaughtering our people in 2017 in the streets of Bamenda and Kumba and Boya and Bengui and Banso Kumbo, we did not have one soldier. We did not even have much of a knife to fight back with. And then they pushed and they pushed. And they were killing our people from helicopter gunships. And through an act of God, an army has risen to defend our people. Even from 1919, the British never did so much of an effort to build an army for our people because they governed us from the Eastern House of Assembly in Enugu. But by an act of God, an army has risen to stand for Ambazonia, to stand for the southern Cameroons. God has not just raised an army, but God has created a nation of Ambazonians in the diaspora, ready to network the capitals of the world, from Washington, D.C. to Bonn, to Cape Town, to Paris, to London. We are a people that have been conditioned and pushed into the diaspora to defend this nation, the nation of Ambazonia. So if you're watching and if you listen to Gabonese, if you're watching and if you've been seeing our fighters lay their lives on the ground, from commando to tiger, to a lot of our troops that have been killed, that have put their lives on the line of fire to defend Ambazonia, then you have to remember one thing. Our people need support. Our troops need support. We need to support their right to defend themselves. The right of a people to defend themselves from a slaughtering and genocidal army is inherent in any legal system in the world. It is called the right of self-defense. When people are asserted to you, or when your own life is in an inherent apprehension of bodily harm and injury, or if somebody in proximity to you, and our people in Ambazonia are in legal proximity to us, when they are in an inherent apprehension of bodily harm and injury, they have the right to self-defense. And I was in court about 2 months ago when our comrades were being arraigned, when the FBI officials were trying to present a case against our comrades. And the judge, Judge Morris, was belaboring the FBI officials, was belaboring the US government officials, that why is it right for Ukrainians to raise money to buy tanks, to buy drones, and to buy missiles to defend Ukraine, and not Ambazonians? Because the judge himself had watched images on the internet of French Cameroon genocidal troops supported by France killing our people. So if you're watching and if you listen to Gabonese, it calls on each and every one of us to rise up and support the right of our people on the ground to defend themselves. For as I said, our people are already free. As the common adage goes, stolen goods or stolen assets are always crying to go back to their owners. Ambazonia has been crying for over 60 years to come back to its owners, to the sovereign owners of Ambazonia, which is us. So you are called to stand up, to support financially, to defending Ambazonia, to defending the erstwhile British Southern Cameroons, so that our children and our grandchildren will sing the song of freedom in the land of the birth of their parents and grandparents. Thank you for watching this show. Paddy, thanks for giving me the opportunity to conclude this show. We will continue to educate our people, and by all means, Ambazonia shall be free. And may I just tip my hat again to Dr. Samuel Sako for that rendition of that message in Pidgin. And again, I want to tip my hat off to all our comrades in Kondengi, in the jails in Boya, in Kumbo, all over Ambazonia, who have been jailed and who are suffering for the sake of our freedom. For as God has promised us, hail, hail the land of promise, for freedom indeed is coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are not done. We have a conclusion from Pastor Commando, who is also very eager to react to this discussion. But I want to thank you, gentlemen, for making out the time to come. I know you have very busy schedules, so I'll give you a lift while we have Pastor Commando. Pastor Commando, the floor is all yours while we have him conclude. Good night. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paddy.
Thank you, panelists. I've been following very keenly and I've been following very succinctly what you guys have been talking concerning this particular program. Cameroon cannot win the war. Yes. I want to say that the issue of plebiscite and the issue of referendum, as the president has explained, I think that what is going on with some of our Ambazonian people, especially our PA, I would like to advise that they should go back to what they call etymology. Look at the root meaning of words, and then we'll be able to come up, because nobody would want to sit down and then go in for a thing that has failed, and everybody knows that it will fail. Because if there is anything that La Republic is expert at, playing games, is expert at telling lies, is expert at twisting anything that is evil, anything that is negative. La Republic is very good at that. And as Ambazonians, we cannot venture or attempt to get to sit with La Republic to Cameroon or accept with anything. I'm so glad, I'm grateful that Barrister Tim said that the United Nations does not organize referendum, does not organize plebiscite. It is the countries that are concerned. So when they are propagating and sending signals that United Nations is going to organize this or organize that, United Nations doesn't organize anything for any country. It is that country that organizes what they are organizing. And we know that there's a conspiracy. If not, we would not have been talking about plebiscite and talking about referendum, because we had the plebiscite before, as the president explained. And he talked about referendum, it has been explicitly explained that referendum is for a country that is undermining the existence of a tribe or of another group of people who are of the same country that have their referendum. And I always make illustrations like if today Biafra want to separate from Nigeria, they are one country. They cannot go for a plebiscite. They will go for a referendum to know whether Nigeria and Biafra have to separate from Nigeria or they have to stay. So, we're talking about referendum with Ambazonia. It's a thing unheard of, except that they will share all the books, burn the books that are in the UN, and then delete the 1st October 1961 for Ambazonia, delete 1st January 1960 for the Republic of Cameroon. Then we can now be sitting down to talk about these two particular items of plebiscite and referendum. So that's what I just wanted to add, to let the Ambazonian people know that there is no fear. We have won this battle. Whether we like it or not, they are getting out of our country. The desperation will not change the articles that have been put in place, even though the people who put the articles in place are in a conspiracy of silence and not saying anything to the genocide and the usurpation of our land that our public is doing. So I want us to let Ambazonians know that we are on good footing and nobody should shake no day. Let's go and bring in our federal draft and let Ambazonians know that we are determined. Thank you very much. That's what I just wanted to contribute to this wonderful teaching and instruction that has come to enlighten the Ambazonian people. Please go and find out the difference between referendum and plebiscite. It will help you a lot, not to talk about and speculate things that do not even exist. Thank you very much, Chief Paddy and your team. See you next when you see me. God bless.
Yeah, thank you very much, and God bless you too. Thank you for your illustrious contribution. Fellow Amazonians, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank all those who participated with sharing on our social media platforms. Your comments were instructive, and they help us to do very good things for us. When we follow them, we understand that we're helping it. The feedback we're getting from you who are watching the program on YouTube and on Facebook and at the home front is quite instructive. um, it's very positive. You're enjoying the show, and we appreciate that. I'd like to take a few announcements before I call off the night. We will be having ABC Amber TV Day, most probably on Saturday the 29th. Publicity gadgets in that regard will be sent out from tomorrow or latest Monday, after we would have consulted with the office of the president. And we cannot have a press conference with the president on Sunday. So the press conference with the president, which will focus mostly, we're going to have James Cobner of BBC, and we hope that we can also have Voice of American journalists available, journalists from Nigeria, Cameroun, Brazil, and Australia will hopefully be available as well. We hope to have that. The press conference is to communicate to the international community Ambazonia's position on this whole discussion of a referendum, and the president will be the one taking questions during that press conference on Tuesday, the 25th of this month. That is in less than 3 days. I would say 3 days from now, we'll be having Tibonach here to come and talk on other issues relating to Ambazonia. We caught attention his reaction against the special status being proposed by Cameroun and other things that are of interest. We'll have the public to react on it, and it's a program that you do not want to miss for anything in this whole wide world. That was a great time being with you. I deeply appreciate. For some reason, I will have to be on air, and I'm also reacting on some issues which I may even want to consider them as trivialities, very distracting, mostly from those who were not even following the program. But it's like when we were young, we used to talk about something. They say, look, poster, talk, film. It is a very dangerous thing for you for look, poster, talk, film. Stop doing that. At least when you see a caption of a program, watch it, understand it, and make your contribution. There's a way a person can understand the difference between a contribution or a constructive criticism and a witch hunt. You know, once you have positioned yourself to always see but what is wrong, or to look for what is wrong and to criticize it, even when you have a good idea, people don't want to listen to it. At least a program like this that has taken close to 2 hours 30 minutes, if you're in disagreement with anything maybe any panelist or anyone has said, the most ethical thing for you to do, first of all, is to say, wow, I love what you people said, but in my opinion, I would have preferred this. You've heard even the others talk about their opinion, but ended up talking about government opinion. And you must not be very strict or rigid or extreme with your opinion, because your opinion is just your opinion, which might not be a correct opinion. That's why we're having a discussion, so that people can share and understand. The most important thing about this was it wasn't a debate today. It was basically a discussion we had to have government opinion communicated. And I thank God we had the right personalities to help us communicate that. I would like to say a beautiful good night, and I'll leave you again with the president's statement as we conclude. Remember to become a club member for ABC Amber TV and a donor. Thank you. God bless you.
Payment method. www.abcambertv.com/donate. ABC Amber TV payment channels: Cash App 202-650-2216, Zelle 240-486-8768, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. PayPal payments at abcambertv.com. Contact us today. info@abcambertv.com. Facebook ABC Ambazonia. You can call us on 124-048-68768. www.abcambertv.com.